Friends, I thought that as we've entered October, towards the end of the month, we culturally celebrate Halloween, and obviously all that entails. And it's definitely a time, I think, where the spiritual realities around us are both questioned and often explored, both the good and the bad as well. And I thought, folks, it would be beneficial here this morning to preach on the extraordinarily important role that Our Lady has in the battle of our souls, her powerful role, essentially, in spiritual warfare, because it is really, really important. Look, it's no secret, and it should be quite obvious that we live in very unusual spiritual times. Our own country here in Ireland, it has seen, like we all know, a very dramatic rise in neo-paganism and numerous amount of New Age spiritualities, like they're going out of fashion. And as well as that, you see, folks, we go through how many years in Catholic schools and Protestant schools at that. We hear the gospel, we've heard the gospel, but a lot of us are starting to reject it. It's a very different situation we're facing ourselves, both in Ireland and the West in general, and it's not good. This rejection of Christianity, it has opened up the space for all sorts of spiritually confusing religions to take hold, as it naturally would, because it's a vacuum, essentially. And I was thinking about it last night, even though we're, as a nation, and like I said, the West in general, we're very spiritual at the moment, I don't know have we ever been as godless in many respects. Godless. And alongside what I would call this spiritual Ikeaism, where we kind of pick and choose what we want, what suits us. Oh, that's nice, I'll take that. I don't want that, that's a bit much now, I'll leave that back on the shelf. Alongside this is the rise of genuine occult activity, and it's getting more and more, and has taken a foothold, folks, unfortunately, in our own parishes here. I'm noticing it more and more. And just to give you an idea of how popular this has become, real occult videos on YouTube, and particularly on TikTok, have reached billions of views. Billions. Let that sink in for a moment. Billions of views. And Sunday Mass here has 3 or 4 views on the statistics. Occult activity videos, real stuff, I'm talking about genuine witchcraft and spells, have reached billions of views. The lure of the supernatural at our time is second to none. Children, young people have and are watching, like I said, genuine witchcraft videos. And they're opening their minds, through their eyes and their senses, their minds and their hearts, this treacherous spiritual material that is really, really dangerous. Genuinely beginning to open doors to very unhealthy spiritual activity. And folks, just to give you 2 examples of how easy it has become for the wrong spirit to take hold in our lives, just through screens alone. I'll give you 2 examples of what I've come across in the past couple of months. About a year ago, this young lady, she was around about 18 years of age or so, she met me after Mass in Jobestown. And she said, "Father, could I have a word with you?" I said, "Of course." So I sat her down in the little room on the left-hand side as I go in the door there. And sat her down, I sat down, and she started crying, and she started shaking out of fear. I said, "What's wrong with you, sweetheart?" I said. And she told me that she started to watch this show on Netflix, which is about a young witch. I'm not going to mention the show because I don't want people watching it. And unfortunately, this show, it has the actual satanic rite of baptism, satanic baptism, with the actual Latin words and all that in it. And she watched this, and she got a fright. She turned it off, she said. And she said, since then, she keeps hearing a voice in her head saying, "Hail Satan," over and over and over again. She can't stop it. She can't sleep with it, she said. She can't concentrate on her schoolwork because of it. And she's in a terrible way over it. So I offered her confession. She took it. And I told her then to start praying to Our Lady for her help and to build up a life of prayer, genuine prayer of protection. Going to the Mass now and again, once a month if possible, saying your prayers, receive the Eucharist, all that. And since then, I've seen her at Mass in Jobestown a couple of times, and I've often asked her, how is she? Not bothering her. The voice is gone. She's much happier, and her life can continue as normal. Quite amazing. And then a couple of months ago, another young woman came to me here in Springfield, and she said she started having really, really nasty, violent, and dark nightmares the whole time. I started seeing these dark shadows darting across the room and the bedroom and the kitchen, etc. And I always ask, when people come to me with that stuff, when did it start? What did you do different in your life at that point? And she simply said, oh God, yeah, she said, when I thought about it, she said, Godfather, I just watched a live video on Facebook of a medium because I wanted to know if my grandmother was okay after her passing away. And that's all it took. That's all it took. Quite extraordinary. Again, I offered a confession and her prayers and all that. I blessed her home and all is fine, thanks be to God. No nightmares, no black shadows. Why am I telling you this, folks? For a number of reasons. And it's a genuine pastoral reality that's becoming more and more obvious, I think. First, everybody, this is a stark reminder of the utter lethal influence even looking or listening to any kind of occult activity can be. Whether it's just for interest or being nosy or really having interest in it, doesn't matter. When we open ourselves to this stuff, that we don't pray, why are we surprised we get attacked? And I know for a fact, there's a lot of people who are suffering very similar issues and they're afraid to come to the church for help, for real help. Second, folks, this is an indication of what can happen when we don't pray. We don't pray. When we have no spiritual armor of real prayer life and use of the sacraments, particularly confession and the Eucharist. When we start messing with spiritual force that we don't understand, what do we expect? We have nothing to protect us from it. Third, folks, as this spiritual sickness is becoming more and more, I don't think our church is responding to it in a very serious way enough. And I have a suspicion that during lockdown, a lot of people dabbled in this stuff more than we actually realize. And I think the effects are starting to show themselves in so many obvious ways. And like even this past week alone, I blessed a couple of houses where families in particular were under ferocious strain due to occult activity at some point in their life. Folks, St. Peter in his letter, he writes that Satan is like a roaring lion, wandering around looking for someone to eat and to stand up to him, strong in faith. Right? What does a predator do? How does a predator act, either in human form or otherwise, or animalistic? They go after the weak ones, those who are on their own, those who are sick, in this case, spiritually sick, spiritually weak. That's what they go after. Those who are vulnerable, naive. And I've also noticed, folks, that families in particular are under direct spiritual attack at the moment. And I've noticed as well that if a parent, when they were young, used Ouija board or whatever they might have used, looked at mediums, whatever, nothing happens. But when a new baby is born in the family, or marriage happens, that's when it usually begins to show its head. Why? You have life and covenant, two beautiful gifts of God in this world, and that's what it goes after. I've noticed, the family is under, folks, obviously particular spiritual and cultural attack that has to be defended at all costs. The family, at the end of the day, folks, the unit of the family, it is the domestic church. That cradle place of faith, love, and humility. And that's why I cannot understate enough for parents to please pray for their children. Please pray for your family. Every night, make the sign to cross the holy water in your doors once a month. Very simple things that are extraordinarily effective and important. Nourish your family with Jesus. And whatever you do, constantly invoke our Blessed Mother. And this, I suppose, brings on to why we're here today, folks. A life of prayer that includes a deep devotion to Our Lady is key in the spiritual warfare that wages in and around us. Okay? She's the unfailing mother of victory at the end of the day, the helper of Christians. As Maximilian Kolbe once said, he said, until the end of time, Satan will never give up tempting men, will always set up obstacles to our salvation. But victory will be ours if we fight under the banner, the flag of the Blessed Mother, and fight with her. There's so much evil in this world, he said, but let's not forget Our Lady is far more powerful, and that she will crush the head of the infernal serpent. Folks, my point is very simple today. Our Lady is key in combating the demonic, which has a very, very real consequences in our world when we allow them into our lives. We have to start praying more as a nation, as families, and to close the bloody doors from this stuff as much as possible, to not let it influence us. If you're in trouble, turn to Our Lady. God anointed Our Lady for her spiritual warfare as I would say, probably the most powerful threat to Satan. Because, why? Of our extraordinary union with Jesus Christ. Think about it. The incarnation, that beautiful word we use to describe when God took on our human flesh, took place in Mary's womb. That is no joke. She said yes to God's will. Her humility, her obedience to the God the Father is unmatched. And it's all of those amazing virtues and characteristics makes her the greatest commander we have in the good fight. The Blessed Mother is the key for the families to be protected in our time. So folks, follow her spiritual lead in this great spiritual battle we're all part of. And this battle, which obviously I think is becoming more and more obvious to anybody who's paying attention.